Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And today it's my absolute pleasure to present something completely new, a new podcast segment that I call the Leaders or Readers Wired for Success Book Club. And this segment is dedicated to introducing you to the best books from the science, self-development, and entrepreneurship categories that help you get wired for success. And this means I invite top scientists, thought leaders, and super successful entrepreneurs to discuss their latest books so that we can all explore new ideas and proven frameworks together. I've always been a huge book nerd, and I'm super excited to start this new podcast segment. This is going to be so much fun. But if you have any questions specifically about the book or about creating financial wealth in general that you would like my guest to answer today, please make sure to drop your questions into the chat and we will come back to the questions in the end. As I said, this is a new podcast segment, so please bear with me as I'm trying to figure out all the tech and everything. So again, please keep your comments and questions coming in the chat and don't be alarmed when I don't pay attention to those during the interview. I don't want to get distracted, but I promise to check the comments after we have recorded the interview. So please be patient and stay until the end if you want your questions answered. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the author of the very first Leaders or Readers Wired for Success Book Club feature, Daniel Mangena, the author of Money Game. Well, hey, Dan, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here. So
Thank you for having me.
For those who don't know Dan, let me give you a short intro so that you can get excited about today's episode. Dubbed Master of Success by the Wall Street Journal and listed as one of the top 10 life coaches to watch for in 2021, Dan is on a mission to transform lives. As a successful entrepreneur, best-selling author, podcast host, life and business transformation coach, and international public speaker, Dan is known for his programs and content that help his clients live lives of abundance in every sense of the word. Because Dan believes that wealth creates freedom for people to intentionally design their lives, to include enormous joy, deeper purpose, vitality and health, and true connection. So he's committed to teaching his clients how to achieve all of this by sharing the exact steps he developed and used to create success for himself. And that's how Dan has been able to help thousands of people across the globe. He's the author of Money Game, Stepping Beyond Intention, The Dreamer's Manifesto, and From Time to Time. And he's also the host of the Do It With Dan and Beyond Success podcast. He has been featured as an expert on CBS, Fox, CNN, and the Jack Canfield Show, as well as in Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. So I hope you're now as excited as I am to have him join us today. Again, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's going to be so much fun. Dan, the first question I'd like to ask all of my guests is, how did you end up doing what you're doing today? What key events in your life got you to where you are today?
Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, this is no disrespect to anybody, but a lot of people come to the kind of work that I do because they were doing something, they were unfulfilled, and they were seeking out their purpose and trying to fill a hole. That wasn't me. I was actually living my best life. Yeah, I actually came to do this work kicking and screaming for the most part. And very much a Jonah and the whale situation, whereby I was literally running away from the calling for about a year, maybe. And then I had a realization at the back end of 2017 that this was the work that I really need to be doing. And then the 13th of February 2018, I was at a meditation retreat. Now, I just need to paint the picture a little bit. Santa Fe in New Mexico is very cold in winter. And it was the 13th of February. It was winter. I'm talking like snow on the ground in the morning. So I'm out at 6:30 in the morning. It's a Monday morning. I'm at 6:30 in the morning doing this meditation. And I had like these hot pocket things that would like warm up my hands. I had them in my hands. I had them in my pockets. I had 2 layers on, scarf, earmuffs, hat, 2 pairs of gloves, the works. And then this meditation experience, I can only describe it as like those of you who've had an Oculus, if you imagine like a whole metaverse, 3-dimensional virtual reality experience where I literally saw what my life would be like if I said yes to that which I've been running away from. And I saw, oh, wow, there's actually more. I thought that I had everything. I don't want to say perfect, but everything was working. But actually, there was something more deeper, more beautiful and powerful that was waiting on the other side. And so that day, I closed down my then business, literally that day on the way home back to the UK.
Wow.
And said yes. And then by July of that year, I'd done my first workshop. We started the podcast the next month. I published the Dreamers Manifesto, and from time to time that year, and been continuing to grow and keep moving forward since then.
Wow, that's so inspiring that you took action straight away, because a lot of people, they procrastinate, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've got my thoughts about procrastination, and those who do get to read this and any of my other books and maybe hang out with me a little bit will see that I don't believe procrastination is real. And what I mean is the unconscious mind is a terminator. It's always moving towards a goal, and it always achieves whatever goal that it's moving towards. It doesn't fail at anything. It's a perfect execution machine. So when I'm procrastinating, I'm actually just moving towards whatever my unconscious mind is programmed to move me towards. It just means that it might not line up with what I've consciously chosen. So I want to work on my business. I want to work on creating content, but I find myself doing something else. The other thing that I find myself doing is actually what my program is effectively set out to do, and it will always succeed.
Yeah, so true. Now, one recurring theme I hear from many of my super successful guests is their experience of struggle, often early in their lives. And this is something that I find super fascinating, because it's almost as if every major struggle is kind of a crossroads where you have to decide to either rise to the occasion and swim against the current and become stronger, or let the current sweep you away to a place where you don't really want to be. So how do you think about struggle and failure, and what part did it play to help you become the person you are today?
I go back to the story that of the butterfly. Someone tried to help the butterfly out of the cocoon, and then the butterfly died. And that's because the actual struggle of breaking free from the butterfly is what gives the butterfly, breaking free from the cocoon is what gives the butterfly the strength to actually make it through life, to be able to fly. It's that strength of breaking out that gives the wings the strength that they need to fly. I think so often we tie up pain with suffering, and struggle with suffering, and failure with suffering at the end of the story, when actually they're just events, and they're events that we have a perspective on. And when we allow that perspective to be one that leads to the negative, then our behaviors, our thoughts, and our emotional state from there tends to be to the negative, and then we end up experiencing a negative outcome, versus taking an experience for just what it is, an experience, and then shifting the lens through which we see it, and taking that shifted lens and allowing that to be the basis on which we then go forward and make decisions and choices. If something is going wrong, I think it's really imperative that we understand that as humans, we do not have the capacity to calculate all of the pieces of anything going on in our life. Neither of us, Claudia, know the impact that this interview that we're going to have today is going to be. We don't know. there are 7 point something billion people. How many other living organisms on the planet? We've got the internet, artificial intelligence. We've got so many moving parts, trillions of moving pieces that we don't have the capacity to calculate. And yet, from our limited perspective, we make a decision about what this event means and then start making choices and having behaviors on the back of that actually leads to a predetermined outcome versus being open to an experience, maybe having an end result that might be for our benefit. I always love to say, what if you just opened yourself up to the possibility that which you are judging as being for your bad or for your defeat or for your downfall might actually be for your benefit. We don't actually know. And if we go to the quantum side of things, actually our expectation about what it's going to be has a big say in what it actually ends up being. So take the struggle, see it as an individual experience, and open up to the possibility that maybe you can expect something positive to come from it, and something positive just might come from it.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. And I want to come back to that later on. But
Sure.
The reason why I wanted to highlight the hidden benefit of struggle is that everyone struggles from time to time. We all
100%.
do, right? And per definition, this is never a fun experience, because if it was, it wasn't a struggle, right? As you said, there's so many factors that we cannot control. And I think we need to remind ourselves just over and over again that it's not the events and circumstances in our life that dictate who we become, but how we choose to respond to those events and circumstances. That's what determines who you become. And a lot of people are stuck because they wait for the outside world to change instead of changing the only thing that they will ever be able to change, which is themselves, right?
Exactly.
And I know this sounds so cheesy, but here's how I try to explain this to everyone. So as a skeptical scientist, I think most scientists are skeptics. This just comes with the territory. Anyways, as a scientist, I used to believe that I have to see proof of something before I can believe in it. But what I've learned over the years is that when it comes to personal development and consciously creating your ideal life, you have to believe before you see, and before you get to be the person that you want to become. Because if you don't believe in a positive future, you won't take the actions that could build that future for you, right?
Exactly.
So from a neuroscience perspective, you need to believe to set the right perception filters that allow your brain to selectively filter the information that you need. And by right information, I mean information that helps you achieve your goals. So filtering all the incoming information and deciding what's important and what isn't is one of the main functions of your brain. So it always tries to find the information that supports your current model of the world. If you believe you can achieve your goals, it will show you all the opportunities that get you to where you want to go. But if you believe that something is not accessible to you, it will show you all the information that confirms that belief. That's why it's called a confirmation bias. Now, that is a very important yet really difficult mindset shift for me, because it's very counterintuitive to the way I had been trained. And I think a lot of people are trained. So then I would love to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think? How does manifesting work? You touched on that in the book when you talked about the importance of aligning the inner and the outer work. Would you mind sharing your thoughts on manifesting with our listeners today?
Sure. Well, I'm going to pretty much dovetail on a lot of what you just said. I don't think manifesting is this special magical thing that everybody makes it out to be, because the bottom line is we are all manifesting all of the time. Every single experience that we witness and have is a manifestation. This conversation is a manifestation. Me walking out, me sipping my tea is a manifestation, because there's something that's showing up in my physical world that was once just an idea, a thought, or an impulse. What we're really talking when we're talking about manifesting is we're saying, I want to be really conscious and deliberate in the thoughts and impulses and ideas that become a part of my physical world. Mm-hmm. But nothing can show up in my physical world unless it has the pre-existing neural pathways that are followed by the habits and behaviors that lead to the outcome. It doesn't matter what you think it is. Manifesting winning the lottery, you still have to go and buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody died and left me an inheritance. Okay, but there still had to be a relationship that existed between you and that person in physical reality that led to them leaving you an inheritance. It may not be that relationship was even yours, but there was still something that happened in three-dimensional reality that persisted, that led to the outcome. So my thing is that manifestation is really the natural flow of creation that we experience every day, which is preceded by a conscious choice about what is going to be the outcome at the end of the day. And every single thing that shows up in our physical world has got a series of things that have to happen before, because that's natural law, the universal law that leads to the construct of the reality that we experience. And most of that happens internally in our inner world. And it's just the receivership of it that happens in the outside world. I love to say that action isn't the creating principle, it's the receiving principle, which is one of the whole things I wanted to show people with the money game, that you can actually have the action in three-dimensional reality just be literally you receiving the gift of something that you've brought from non-form into form. So everyone that's getting caught up in the idea of manifestation as this magical thing where things just fall out of the sky, I want to invite them to just do something, do a little exploration, go and look at anybody who talks about that. And you'll see that all of them actually did some pretty hard work in three-dimensional reality to sell you on the idea that nothing had to be done in three-dimensional reality. The funniest example of that I had was I was on Instagram and there was an ad that came up. Get your clients without using Instagram.
That's hilarious.
Right? Or someone who uses LinkedIn to tell you that there's another way that you should be getting clients for your business. But I just want you to just take aside all the mystical, lovely, sexy, yummy stuff for a second and just come to these really simple ideas. Everything follows the idea of, and here it is, our physical reality is always the result of our habits, behaviors, actions, and choices. As much as 97% of those happen at the unconscious level, whatever neural pathways have been built in, they're going to follow through. But the changing of neural pathways doesn't happen because we look at a vision board or write things down on paper. It happens because there's been an emotional input that's given a new instruction to the unconscious to create a new neural pathway, to create a new outcome. And our emotional state is, for the most part, dictated by what's going on in our environment. So we've got this positive loop that can be created. And again, the whole point of Money Game is creating sufficient evidence in your three-dimensional reality that gives you the emotional input that changes the neural pathways, the ideas and expectations that leads to the outcomes, that leads to actions and habits and behaviors that leads to new outcomes. And that's what I really think manifestation is all about.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you just talked about the importance of aligning the inner and the outer work. But in your book, you said, and I'm quoting, the game's principal purpose is to expose your mind to the experience of firsthand evidence of money coming to you with you not having to reach out for it. It should just show up. Now, someone reading this or listening to the episode might think, well, that's a bit of a contradiction, isn't it? First, you tell me manifesting doesn't just happen without some form of action. And then you tell me the money should just show up without me having to do anything. So can you elaborate on that and clear up any potential confusion around that point?
Of course. You have to read the book and you have to change your general habits, as the book will tell you to do. There are some actions that you take, but those actions change who you are. They're not directly related to the money coming in. They're directly related to you as a person who's calling the money in. There is nothing in your life that will change unless something changes. And that change is going to have to include an emotional state, a mindset shift, and an action or behavioral shift. Specifically with the money game, what we're saying is you're doing the work to change you so that the new you can call money in without you needing to have to go and directly go and exchange something to receive it, to go out and reach for it. Again, action is the receivership, not in the creation. So there's still going to be an action of receivership. Even if you get a check in the mail, you still have to bend over, pick up the letter, open it up, and get the check and then go to the bank and put it in the bank. Even if you win the lottery, you still have to go and buy the lottery ticket and move through time and space in order to spend the money that you got from the lottery. There's always going to be a three-dimensional element, but that three-dimensional element doesn't have to be a reach out and hustle for the money to come to you. Does that make sense?
Right. So the basic form of action that you have to take is change yourself so that you're able to receive and then take aligned action that doesn't have to be the hustle kind of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the money game is one of the tools that we teach in my Micro to Millions program, where we take people to six figures, we take people to millions. Some in as little as, I think, 7 or 8 months is the record at the moment. Might be 8 or 9 months is the record at the moment to go from 0 to $1 million. And this tool is about shifting who you are so that you change your relationship to the idea about how money can show up. Now, the current record that I have for someone playing the money game is $75,000 in 2 days. Okay.
Nice.
Now, that's recorded. There may have been other ones, but that's the recorded win. Now, I haven't had anyone make $1 million with the money game, but what we have had is people that play the money game move through the steps of our program and get to that $1 million very, very easily, because it shifts the entire relationship to what we need to do, quote unquote, in order for money to come in. So it changes your emotional experience. It changes your mindset by changing the evidence, and also changes the relationship to what you have to do in order to make money come in.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for clearing this up. I think while manifesting might be a concept that not everyone has thought about, maybe, I'm sure that everyone has personally encountered the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, so here's this scenario. So you have set yourself this big audacious goal that requires you to leave your comfort zone. And then you start, I know you said you don't believe in procrastination, but a lot of people do start to procrastinate once they've set this goal instead of taking inspired action. So they might start to clean their offices, run errands, sort their email, or do something else that makes them feel as if they were doing something productive when indeed they're just keeping themselves busy. And I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point or other. And this inner resistance that you encounter when you're trying to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So actually, that inner resistance can manifest in all sorts of ways. So sometimes it's procrastination, but sometimes people get physically sick every time they try to do something challenging, or their knee-jerk reaction is to pick random fights with their partner, friends, family, or colleagues. So I think of those reactions often as a psychological equivalent of the physiological fight, flight, or freeze response. So we're either trying to avoid the situation, we become aggressive, or we get completely overwhelmed and just mentally paralyzed. So that's a fun challenge for everyone who's listening today. Do you recognize your own instinctive tendencies here? Do you tend to fight, flight, or freeze? So what about you, Dan? What's your instinctive tendency?
So I just want to clear something up.
Yeah.
Procrastination as an experience is real, but I'm saying the narrative that sits behind it, I have a different idea on, which is that procrastination is just your unconscious mind pulling you to whatever it's programmed to do.
That's
so
true.
If someone finds themselves making a quote unquote random fight, I kind of put forward there's nothing random about it. The unconscious mind is probably just doing whatever it's programmed to do, which is to stop you getting to your goal, because the unconscious mind is always trying to keep us safe. And if it feels that your goal is going to change your life, then it doesn't see that as being safe, because for the unconscious, safe is the same. And so what's really happening is the mind is just trying to, not as your enemy, but as your friend, keep things nice and samey. Keep you safe. So if someone finds himself doing all of these things, what's really happening is that you don't have the internal alignment to the goal yet, or the goal is too far outside of the comfort zone to allow it to come in. And that's one of the reasons why I teach about micro shifts, which again is one of the key principles that Money Game is all about. So me personally, do I have stuff? Yeah, I have them all the time, because I'm always pushing the boat out and I'm always making myself uncomfortable. I was just with one of the people that I coach with just on Wednesday of last week. I think I had my session with them. I had a VIP day with them. And I had a particular goal that I was going for, and realized at the end of it that I was kind of being a bit of a softie by going for that goal. And I've actually, what have I done? I think I've gone for double the goal that I was going for before. The discomfort's already kicked in. The desire to procrastinate has already kicked in. The desire to keep things the same has already kicked in. But here's the difference. The difference is I have a deep relationship to myself to be aware of it. And also I'm resourced through 22 years of being in personal development to actually start calling in the support for where I am going to be unable to do it by myself. All too often we try and do these things by ourselves, and that's what leads to the challenge. I know that my unconscious is going to kick off. I know that I'm going to be getting myself stuck. I know that I'm going to be, not doing behavior. So guess what? My coach is holding me accountable. I have to check in every week, blah, 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 and all of these things to make sure that I'm not left by myself to keep myself the same. And then within the context of that larger goal, I'm taking little steps every single day to move towards it, to keep that momentum of movement. But I do have that big goal, and I do have the support system, and I do have that check-in, I do have the accountability to make sure that I keep moving. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think the self-awareness and the accountability are so important.
Yes.
And I would love to know more about this micro-shifting process. So for those who haven't read the book yet, can you maybe share a bit more about this micro-shifting process? Because I think that's exactly the right thing to do to overcome this big gap. Like when you have those big audacious goals and they are way out of our comfort zone, and we have to take these baby steps. So that's why I love this technique so much.
So I've got a question for you. If I said to you, Claudia, I'd like you to start with zero in the bank and go and make 1.6 million, what's your immediate response?
It's like, that's not going to happen.
If I said, I've waved a magic wand, let's deal with all of your mindset shifts, let's deal with all your emotional resilience, and let's give you a roadmap, and I gave you 800,000, could you take that to 1.6 million? I'm going to give you the exact roadmap of exactly what to do to get from 800,000 to 1.6. You've got no mindset issues. You've got no limiting beliefs. You can do it?
Yep.
Okay. Did you know that if you take 100 euros, dollars, pounds, whatever the thing is, and do that same process 14 times of doubling it, it takes you to 1.6 million with a rounding down at 12,800 down to 25,000.
That's awesome.
14 steps. It's 14 steps to go from zero all the way to 1.6 million. That's what we do with our Micro to Millions program. But here's the thing. At every step, we drill down. We're not thinking about the 1.6 million at $100 or 100 euros. We're saying, okay, my goal and my only focus is to take this 100 and take it to 200 or more. That's it. Okay, what strategies do I need at this stage? Here's a book of strategies for you that you can pick from. What mindset shifts do I need? Let's look at that. What emotional relationship do I need to money to be able to hold the container of 200? Let's do it. So that's a practical application of micro shifting, because each and every one of those steps has got exactly the same distance in terms of size of growth from the last time. It's double. There's nothing bigger. And from the neuroscience perspective, you know as well as I do, once you've done that a few times, the limiting belief that you might have around the ability to do that dissipates. But here's a really cool thing. You're building that momentum of dissipation at a level of money where you're not going to have too much of an emotional charge around it. And so that momentum gets built where you don't have a charge. Therefore, you get to the bigger numbers. There may be a little bit of resistance, but you've got the corresponding evidence of you having flow and momentum up until that point. So micro shifting, as a definition, is a consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. A consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. So we're taking consistent steps, and those steps, those baby steps, I call minimum deliverables. Whatever you can do without resistance. It might be that all you can do without resistance today is to type up the email to send to that person. It might be that you're just going to outline what you're going to say to that prospect. It might be that you're just going to start to sit and think and make some notes about the proposal you're going to make. That's fine. Do it. But then the next day, take the next step that you can do that next day. Consistency and just going to whatever you can do and then pushing the edge a little bit. I say push your edge and not your buttons. Find whatever it is you're comfortable with and then move into discomfort, but not to the point where the level of discomfort leads to inaction.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree from a neuroscience perspective, this makes total sense because it's kind of like finding the sweet spot of excited motivation and calm focus, like between those two. That's sort of in the middle between completely unmotivated and completely overwhelmed. So you have to find the sweet spot in the middle. And what might be important for people to understand here is that those psychological states are based on underlying physiological states. So, for instance, your motivation and drive are mainly determined by your dopamine level. So, if you're completely unmotivated, your dopamine level is likely low. Now, when you're completely overwhelmed and stressed, your body has gone too far into sympathetic activation, and you're now experiencing the effects of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And those stress hormones can further dampen the production of dopamine, which then makes you feel unmotivated again. So it's really important to understand that it's all connected. And what I think microshifting does is that it helps you expand your comfort zone without raising your stress level so much that you go into this physiological stress mode. And another important aspect that I think confuses a lot of people is the importance of adjusting and aligning your intentions and expectations, because intentions and expectations are not the same thing, right? You can have the best intentions, but still expect things to go terribly wrong, right? So let's use manifesting money as an example. People who play the money game might play it with the intention to manifest money, but they don't expect it to work. So what would you want those people to understand, and how should they think about this?
Well, I mean, the book, we put into written form something that we actually started teaching people in real life. I think the first time I shared this with people was January of 2019, and people started manifesting stuff straight away. But I actually taught those people firsthand, so there was a bit more flexibility. So the book's got kind of strict rules for you to follow in order for you to have a system or framework. But what I always say is, although the book says like start with like $10 or €10 or whatever, think of any amount of money that you found on the floor before. Any amount of money, it could be like €1, it could be like €2, it could be like 50 cents. Whatever amount of money that you've ever found on the floor, start with that. Because guess what? There's no resistance on the expectation because you've actually had the experience of it. One of the things I would say to people is the point of this isn't to give you a goal that you can't do. It's to give you something that you can definitely do. Even if you start with a penny, right? That is enough for the magic of this book to work, because the whole point is your brain sees Claudia set a goal for a penny and a penny came in. Then she did it for 2 pence and it came in. Then she did it for 3 and it came in. The size of the money doesn't matter. What matters is the consistent experience and the momentum experience of you saying something and it happening. That builds the neurology around you saying something and it happening. When you then go and look at your health and you say, I'm going to be fine later today, guess what? The brain's like, oh, Claudia said she's going to be fine. Let's get the right chemical balance going on in the body so that we can purge whatever's going on and we can be fine later today. When Claudia says, do you know what? This date is going to go really, really well today. I just know it. Then the mind's like, oh, crap. The date's going to go really well. Let's make sure we shift the perception and all the stories going on so that we have a good date. Because I think it's Wayne Dyer that said, when you change the way you look at things, the thing you look at changes. So much of our experience isn't based on the actual experience itself. It's based on the stories and narratives that we're carrying about the experience. What this does is it gives you a completely new lens to look at experience of life of, which is when I say it, it happens. My word becomes flesh. That which I speak comes to life.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Actually, I listened to an amazing interview with a cognitive scientist, Donald Hoffman, this morning, who uses evolutionary game theory to show that our perception of time and space is only an illusion. So
you got to send me that. You have to send me that.
Yeah, I have to send you that. It's so amazing. He thinks that 4D space-time is not fundamental, but it's more like a practical user interface that hides an underlying truth that is just far too complex for us to navigate. So I know this is getting a little philosophical and subjective at this point, but Since your book mentioned your beyond intentional flow funnel and that time is not real, I just love to hear your thoughts about the underlying fabric of reality and the mechanics of the universe. Let me ask you the simple question: how does it all work?
Well, I'm, you know, for qualification, I don't have it. I'm working on my doctorate. I don't have a doctorate right now. I certainly haven't written any papers on this, but I do have ideas, and I want everyone to just take what I say with a pinch of salt and to explore the experience of it for yourself. That's the oh, my man Daryl's in. How you doing, Daryl? Yeah, I want everybody to take this from the perspective of what your personal experience is. Because what I've got to say, what Claudia's got to say, doesn't matter. What matters is your personal experience of it. Because your personal experience of it is what's going to lead to the outcomes that you're going to have. Okay. So first and foremost, let's look at what time is. What is time? Time are numbers that shift every single year. Was it 365 quarter days? Then you've got leap years. You've got months that are days, but are they really days? Like, what's going on? We're not in alignment with natural time anymore. Like the ancients used to use natural time, the movement of the stars, the movement of the sun, the moon. That's how they measured, quote unquote, time. They use that to create a container, a structure for us to order our lives. Since we've got digital time now, it's a very, very different thing. I've got a watch on. I have to wind my watch. I have to put my watches on a winder so that they don't stop and all of the things. But all of they are doing is holding together a collective agreement that we have, that the number 60 creates a framework around which we can measure how we run our lives. It's an arbitrary idea that we've all signed up to. It's not natural time. And even when we look at natural time and what we actually experience in physical reality, we actually only experience now. What I just said no longer exists. By the time I've even stopped to think about what I just said, it's so far in the past that I'm actually missing a new now. The only thing that's really real in terms of time is now from a quantum perspective. What then happens is we have ideas about the future that we project ourselves into and memories of the past that we get caught up in. But when we let go of those, we actually come to the only point that's real, that's now. The idea of four-dimensional reality, I believe, is just a collective agreement that we have signed up to as individual consciousnesses that allows us to have a stable framework to experience the game of physical reality. That's my thought. And my intention on a daily basis to spend more of my time present and now so that I can fully experience the game and then just use that four-dimensional framework as a scorekeeper for where I am in relation to the game.
Right. Yeah, this is also fascinating, and I have to read more about all those evolutionary game theories and stuff like that, because it's really fascinating to think about the fabric of reality. What are our perceptions? What is real? What's just an illusion? Are we living in a simulation? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And you know, I mean, my thing is this, you know, to tie up on the philosophical stuff. There are some things that we're just not going to know the truth of, right? True. So I was the annoying kid in Bible school that the pastor would always say, okay, Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret things are of God, which is Deuteronomy 29:29, which is, shut up, Dan, I don't know the answer. But as I've grown up, I've actually seen that there are secret things that we can't know whilst we're still holding physical form and not in a deep enough connection to the divine self that allows us to experience the truth of it. And those things really just can become a distraction, a procrastination point from the experience of life itself. It doesn't really matter if it's a simulation or not. What matters is what's your experience within the simulation. It doesn't even really matter if time's real or not. What's your relationship to time and how is that impacting your experience of the game of life? So I always invite people to come back to two simple questions. What is my heart called to do right now? What brings me joy right now? And what of that list of things doesn't impact other people living their joy? What feels good and does no harm? If I can go through life answering those questions affirmatively into the negative and continue to take actions that follows on from that, it's going to be very difficult to go wrong.
Yeah, those are great questions to ask. And another thing you briefly mentioned in the book is the concept of people having different money DNAs. What do you mean by that? And can you explain how your money DNA concept works and how people can use it to create more abundance in their lives?
Okay, so money DNA is a concept. First and foremost, what I will do as well is anybody who's watching this, either live or replay, on the 30th of June, I'm actually going to be doing a workshop on money DNA. It's a paid workshop, but anyone who's watching this that reaches out to Claudia will make sure that she gets a link to let you come for free to the workshop. I'm literally going to break down what money DNA is, how it works. So I'm going to give you the very high level now, but if you really are interested and serious about it, then you can come along to the workshop. And again, it's a paid workshop, but we will give you access to it. I say that because nowadays so many people say, come to my workshop, aka my sales pitch. It's not that, it's an actual workshop where we're actually going to dive in and map your money DNA. But money DNA is, I'll give you the analogy. So my son's mum is Russian, blonde hair, blue-eyed, all of the things, right? As you can see, I'm a chocolatey hue, I've got black hair, I've got brown eyes. So when Olga fell pregnant, we didn't know what my son was going to look like. We didn't even know if he was going to be a boy. But there's nothing that we could have done after the point of inception to change what gender he was going to be born with naturally, what his eye color was going to be, his hair color, his skin tone, none of those things. And yet all of those things were already encoded and became an outcome. When we actually look at our financial situation right now, everybody's financial situation that they're in right now has naturally unfolded from their beliefs, their aptitudes, their choices, their habits, their emotional state. There's going to be a natural follow through that happens. The difference between money DNA and physical DNA is that with money DNA, we can start to optimize, tweak, and actually shift some of the things going on so that we can be in sufficient flow to allow the natural unfolding of money to happen according to an intention. So what money DNA does, we actually go through 5 pillars, the vehicle that you're using, the role, your internal communication, how you make decisions, and also how you enact naturally action and transformation. And when you understand how you naturally roll with it, all of these 5 things, you can start to shift your environment and shift what you're doing and shift how you're showing up to find yourself in the deepest flow with money. So that means that you're using a fraction of the time, a fraction of the energy, a fraction of the resources, and having a fraction of the resistance also.
Right. So you're basically finding the way to get to financial wealth that's the easiest for you to achieve. Is that right?
Exactly, where there's the most flow, the least resistance. And we all have a space of flow and no non-resistance. It's just a matter of understanding what that is for you so that you can actually fall into alignment with it. As a simple example, I've got a guy that was in my program called Alan. Alan came in, he's an amazing musician, like a wizard. He can make these beautiful things. He created a meditation music album called Ecstasis, actually, EXTASIS. And I invite everyone to go and check it out. And he just builds these beautiful orchestral things. And he came into the program. He's like, I want to make my million with music. I was like, okay, great. Mapped his money DNA, and it actually turned out that he should have been making his money through real estate. Within 3 months of joining the Accelerate program, he was averaging 5 figures monthly. A short time after that, 5 figures weekly. He's now doing multi-million-dollar deals. The bank gave him $20 million to go and buy real estate, and he's financially free.
Wow, that's awesome.
Right. And so when I look at someone's money DNA, we map it out. It's crazy how quickly you can have a shift, because it's generally that someone's just out of alignment in one place. And that's what's creating the pushback. That's what's creating the resistance. That's what's creating the stuck state. When we allow people to sit in the flow, we literally see people fly, because you're literally going with the natural flow of where the abundance is.
I like that. That's the antidote to all the hustle.
Complete antidote. Because hustle, a flower doesn't hustle to grow. Ethan didn't hustle to be, he's got like little blondie curls and he's got caramel skin. Like, he didn't have to hustle to do that. It just naturally unfolded. What about if we could just design our abundance journey to match where the flow is? Then you'd see things naturally unfold.
I love that. I think I'll see you on that. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, 30th of June. It's the 30th of June. I think it's about 5 o'clock Eastern time or something like that. We'll get you a link so that people can come and join for free.
I'll share that in the show notes for sure. So what I really love about your book are 2 things. The first one is that it's just super simple and practical, and it has delivered great results for yourself and your clients. I love everything that's evidence-based. So I love that. And the other thing that I really love about is the fact that you are turning it into a game. You're making it fun, because gamification is such a great strategy to increase motivation, reduce resistance, and get people to take action. And I haven't written a book myself, so I just wonder what it was like for you to write this book. What was the most fun part, and what was maybe the most challenging part about actually writing the book?
Well, the good thing, as I said about this book, is it was from something that we'd already been teaching for a little while. So if I give you the background to the money game really super quick, I'm not going to take much time on it. 2018, like I said, I walked away from a business that was making upwards of £100,000 monthly to basically be a poor teacher. I hadn't intended to make any money. I literally just wanted to share my work with the world. I was living on savings, literally flying around the world on my own dime, renting spaces and begging people to come and listen to what I had to say for free and not even charging anything. And then I realized about August of that year that wasn't going to last forever. I was probably going to run out of money at some point. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to run out of money. So I said, oh, well, hang on a minute. If what I'm saying is true about consciously creating, I should be able to just set an intention and I should be able to have the money to continue to do this work. And so I sat down and I wrote what was the first iteration of the money game statement. I wrote it down. So, okay, what state do I need to? I need to be in positive expectation. Okay, let's get into gratitude. So I wrote a few things I was grateful for, got into gratitude. I understood microshifting at the time. So I said, I just like $50. I was in Canada at the time. I was in Toronto. So $50. Let's see what happens. And the next day, 193 euros showed up out of nowhere. And I continued to play the game and to refine the statement and to refine the structure of it until I was able to ask for 10 grand and it showed up in 4 days, 10 grand US. So I said, okay, I feel that this works now. I've got enough evidence. So I kept playing it, kept using it. I moved here to Mexico around that time. I used it to start calling in other things as well, breaking down the principle of the microshifts. And then in January of the next year, that's when I started to share it with people. But, you know, the original recording still exists because I did it at a mastermind where there's an actual recording of. And over time, I then did some challenges around it. We did some classes and whatnot, a couple of workshops. I said, this is great. This needs to be in more people's hands. And so what I ended up doing was taking all of these different things, the challenges, the workshops and the recordings, and then just distilling that down into a set of steps that could be repeated by anyone. So the writing of this book wasn't as challenging, say, as writing The Dreamer's Manifesto or writing Stepping Beyond Intention, because I had a pre-existing system that I was just converting into Word. But the challenges were putting it together in a way that people would understand it enough without me being there to literally teach it to them. But also I wanted the book to be short. The book really, really short. You can read it in like an hour and a half or something. And then it becomes like this manual that you can come back to, because I didn't want it to be this superfluous tome with all this stuff in it. I wanted it to be a really, really practical thing that people could use. So that was really the challenge, distilling it all down in a way that people could read it and understand it without me being there. But in terms of the challenges of writing it itself, they weren't so bad because I was really just taking things that already existed.
Right. And what has been the most memorable reaction or story from one of your money game readers so far?
I think it was, I hope I'm not getting the person wrong. I think it was Kate Abbott. We did a challenge. And with the challenge, we just saying you just got to manifest $10 over the course of the week. And what's really funny is that we don't actually write the statement until day 5, but people manifest the money before we even write the statement. And the other funny thing is, although the goal is to get a 10, the average that we've had every time is about 1,500. And we've had varying degrees of manifestation within that, because there's a key to the statement. You always say or more. So it's not, I want $1, it's $1 or more. So what always happens is that you're always opened up to whatever your limitations are mentally about the thing. But the funniest story was when someone got 50,000 as a tax return for taxes they hadn't filed yet.
That's amazing.
I let that sit. They hadn't filed their taxes yet, and yet they got a tax return of $50,000, $55,000, I think.
That's awesome. Maybe we should do this as a challenge on the podcast today. So invite everyone to share their statement and see how much they manifest within the next, say, a week or so.
And we've got, the challenge is still available in my Facebook group, the videos, and you can literally flick through and see all of the results. We left it up. Normally we take a challenge down, but we left it up. If you go to Dream with Dan as a Facebook group and go in the units, there's the Money Game Challenge. The videos are there. There's the statements and all the resources are there. Do it over the next 5 days and definitely let Claudia know exactly how you get on.
I'll get the link for you and I share it all in the show notes, and let's just see what happens.
100%.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today that we haven't talked about so far?
Just that it's called money game for a reason. I mean, so often we get so caught up in, the money, blah, 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 blah. But money nowadays, fiat currency is useless numbers on a screen that people arbitrarily move around. And yet we've got this massive emotional charge around it. Drop the charge, allow it to be a game. They're just numbers on a screen that we've attached meaning to. Allow that meaning to have a bit more fun behind it, because at the end of the day, none of us are getting out of this life thing alive, so we might as well have fun while we're doing it.
I love that. And last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they want to buy the book or have a conversation with you or just work with you in whatever capacity?
The best way is dreamwithdan.com. Really, really easily. Dreamwithdan.com. Head over there. Everything's on the website. Perfect.
Dan, thank you so much for being on the show today and for being the guinea pig for this new segment.
My pleasure.
I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm sure the listeners will love all the tips and insights that you shared with us today.
Thank you.
Take care and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.